my name is Nia and welcome to Tea with Me. Sorry I've been away for a while. I've been really busy with school and school musical and everything like that, but I am back now. So in my last video I said I was going to be going kind of back to basics. So this video is going to be all about tea terminology, and that's pretty much as basic as you can get. So there are three different sections that the video is going to be divided into. First is basic terms, second is tea tools, and third is just tea extras. So hopefully after this video you will be able to confidently walk into a loose leaf tea store and understand everything that they're saying to you. Okay, so the first term is loose leaf tea. Loose leaf tea is basically just bagged tea without the bag. So what I mean by that is that it's the tea leaves themselves and whatever other seasoning that the creators added to it. The tea leaves in loose leaf tea are generally larger than the ones in bag tea because they don't have to ground them down to fit in a bag. And loose leaf tea often comes in a tin can like this. So I'll try to show you some loose leaf tea in this, but it is dark, like it's green and brown. So I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but you could just go to one of my other videos if you're desperate to see what loose leaf tea looks like. So, oh, that's really bad. Okay, that's white chocolate frost, loose leaf. Oh, there you can kind of see. So you can see the leaves and then the little chocolate balls in there. Loose leaf tea is generally more flavorful than bag tea just because water is able to move around more, and also the leaves are bigger, so bigger leaves means bigger flavor. Okay, the next thing is bag tea. So bag tea is just loose leaf tea in a bag, basically. Once again, it's the tea leaves and the flavor, but bag tea is a lot more ground down because they have to fit the leaves into a bag, and if you have leaves as big as the ones you do in loose leaf tea, they just wouldn't fit in a bag. So a bag of this size, I guess. So this is just an example of bag tea. Comes with a string and a little piece of paper on the end. So you can see it's very ground down. It's almost like powder. So that's one of the reasons why bag tea isn't as flavorful as loose leaf tea, just because a lot of the flavor's been lost by grounding down the ingredients. The next thing is fermented tea. Fermented tea is just tea where the leaves have been left out longer than others to air out. And the purpose of this is that if you leave tea leaves out for a longer period of time, when the air hits them, they reactivate enzymes. So that is one of the reasons why fermented tea is kind of like the healthy tea. And that's all I have to say about fermented tea. And the last thing is steep tea, or as I like to call it, plain old tea. Steep tea, I'm not really sure why people make a big deal out of it because all tea is steeped. I know Tim Hortons sells this thing called steep tea, but it's just, like, steep just means that you put the tea into hot water and let it soak in. That's what steeping is. So steep tea, it's just tea. I mean, I've never had it, so maybe it just means that they keep the bag in so that you can steep it yourself, but it just, like, all tea is steeped, so, yeah. Okay, so next we'll get into the second portion of the video, and that is tea tools. Okay, so the first three things I'm going to talk about, people often confuse them, and they might have different definitions than I do, but this is how I see it. So the first one is a kettle. A kettle is a teapot that you put on the stove, you turn on, put water in it, and it will come to a whistle. That's like the typical thing for kettles, and you can either add tea bags after or put them right in when the water's cold. So this is an example of a kettle. You just push this handle and then you can pour it out. So it looks like a teapot, but you can put it on the stove. And it's very obvious what's a teapot and what's a kettle because it's made out of completely different materials. So this is okay to put on a stove, and it will whistle when it's hot enough. Now, I usually use kettles for bagged tea, just because you can plop the bagged tea right into the kettle and then turn it on and be ready. For loose leaf tea, I tend to use a water heater, which I'm going to show next. So this is a water heater. You plug it into the wall, and this one has a little switch on the end. You push down once you plug it in, and then once it's hot enough, it'll just pop right back up. I use this for loose leaf tea mainly because one of the problems with loose leaf tea is that it sometimes takes a long time to make a cup. So I'll have this heating up, plugged into the wall, and then I'll be able to dish out my loose leaf tea into a filter or a mesh ball or whatever I'm putting it into. And by the time I'm done that, this is hot enough, and then I'll just pour it right into the cup and then let it steep for a little bit. I find it a lot easier just to use a water heater, less hassle than a kettle, you know. You can just plug it right into the wall. I guess it's the same in the end, but I just tend to use this for loose leaf tea and kettles for bagged tea. So the last thing I'm going to show you is a teapot. Yes, a teapot. Not the last thing, the last of three. This is an example of a teapot. I'm showing you this because sometimes people confuse kettles and teapots because they do look similar, but do not put teapots on the stove or else they will be ruined. So teapots, they are not really useful, I guess, unless you're having a tea party, in which case you could just use a kettle, but I mean, this looks a lot prettier than a kettle, right? So teapots mainly used for tea parties. Serving tea just looks a lot prettier in this, or collecting teapots like I do. What's next? Okay, the next thing has 4 names, and they all mean the exact same thing. Infuser, strainer, mesh ball, and pincer. They are all pretty much the same thing. What they are, they're little mesh compartments that you put the loose leaf tea right into, and then you can snap it back, and then you just put it right into the cup, pour hot water over it, and let it steep. They have a lot of different names, which kind of sucks because I've heard them be called infusers or strainers or mesh balls or pincers, but I wish that they just had one common name. I guess the only difference is that pincers, it's like a mesh ball and then it has 2 long sticks at the other end, so you can kind of pinch your tea into it. Like, it'll be like this, and then you can just scoop it and pinch it and then lock it and put it into the cup. So I guess a pincer is a little bit different than a mesh ball, or infuser, or strainer. So once again, it's just mesh on the inside, put the little tea leaves in, snap it back, put it into the teacup, and let it steep. These are good because it allows a lot of water to flow through just because the holes are so big, and that means bigger flavor. And also, the bigger the mesh ball, the better, because, once again, more water can flow through the tea leaves, causing more flavor. Okay, so the other thing that you could use to steep your tea is a filter. So, a filter just looks like this. It's like an empty tea bag, basically. Just made out of paper, I guess. So what you do, you scoop your tea right into here, and then you have this. If you're lucky, you have a drawstring, and you pull it, and then boom, it's like a tea bag. They're good if you don't want to make the investment for a mesh ball, but really, mesh balls aren't that expensive, and if you become a big tea drinker, then this just becomes a waste of money, and it's not as good for the environment as just using a mesh ball over and over, because you can only use this one time, but you can use a mesh ball as much as you want. You can get mesh balls for under $10, so I would make the investment if I were you, because it means better for the environment, better for your wallet, and also more flavorful tea. But these are good, perfectly fine. These are perfectly fine. Get a mesh ball. These are perfectly fine. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, they're easier for beginners, I guess, just because there's more room to put the tea into. Anything else that I have to say about this? No. Okay, the last tea tool term that I have is sachet. Not sachets, sachet. So, a sachet is a tea bag, essentially, but it comes in a synthetic type of bag. So it looks like this, synthetic material. These are generally a lot stronger than anything that you can get in a mesh ball or a filter, just because of the material and because there's a lot of room for the tea to move around. And once again, that just means more flavor. And there are lots of holes in this, so there's plenty of ways for the water to get in and to soak up the flavor of the tea. They come pre-packaged, like I said. So mine came in a little thing like this. You just rip it open, and then it's in the bag. They're strong enough to make a super strong cup, or even a pot. I mean, I've used this in a pot, and every cup, like, you can taste the flavor in every cup. So it definitely is strong enough to use for a pot. But something that you would get in a filter, probably not strong enough for a whole pot. Okay. Oh yeah, one more thing. This doesn't look like it, but sometimes sachets come in pyramid shapes, so it's kind of like folded up like that. And the idea is that when you put it into your cup and you pour hot water over it, it'll slowly unfold. And that just means more movement for the tea leaves and more movement for the water, and then more flavor. This one didn't come like this though, but lots of them do. That smells so good. Okay, next we'll get into tea extras. So I'm just going to scroll down. Okay, so we just have 2 terms here. I was going to talk about all the different types of tea, but this video is already 12 minutes long, and I don't want people to lose interest that quickly. Okay, so agave is the first thing I have. Agave syrup, it is a sweetener for your tea. It's kind of like honey, basically. It comes in the same type of bottle, looks the same. You can get different flavors, though. The difference is that it's a lot sweeter than honey, and apparently a lot healthier. So that's why they sell it. It just kind of gives it a bit of extra flavor to your tea, because sometimes people complain that, oh, tea is so weak, so that's why they use agave syrups. You can find them at David's Tea, pretty much any tea store, even probably the supermarket you could find it at. And it's just really natural, comes from the agave plant, and is apparently a lot healthier than honey. Yeah, okay. And the last thing that I have on my list is matcha. So matcha is a Japanese type of green tea, and it's different than other green teas because the leaves are put in the shade for about 30 days before they're picked, and then they're ground into this dark green powder. And the shading just lets the teas become rich in amino acids. So then they take those leaves that have been in the shade for about a month, and they ground them down, and it comes into this fine powdery stuff. And then you take that matcha powder, you take a whisk, and you whisk it all together with water really fast. And then if you do it right, there'll be like a little layer of foam at the top, so it's kind of like a latte. And the big difference between this and green tea is that it's just apparently a lot healthier, because of the amino acids, I guess. I'm not exactly sure, but it's apparently a lot healthier and tastes a lot better. And the darker that the powder is, that means the better the leaves are. So if you get a light green powder, apparently it's not as high quality as the dark green powder. And that is it. So thank you for sticking around for 15 minutes. I really appreciate it, and I hope that now you can walk into his tea store and understand all the things that they are saying to you. Okay, have a great day. This has been Tea with Nate.